Welcome back, my friends. Welcome back. Scotty the Trucker coming to you from a rest area. I think a little south. I mean, I know I'm south of Indianapolis. I'm going to say a little south, but I think it might be as much as an hour south of Indianapolis. You do tend to lose track a little bit of exactly where on the planet you are. First, I have a cleanup on aisle 10 to take care of with you guys, and then I have just a funny little Bonehead trucker story involving a trucker that looks surprisingly exactly like me. But the cleanup on aisle 10, for the first time ever, I have deleted one of my videos. I wasn't inundated with a bunch of hate or, you know, pain in the neck comments, anything like that. Nothing of the sort. I had a couple comments over the last few weeks showing that I might not have done the best job of kind of explaining myself. I believe in the point that I made with it, but I probably could have done a better job of being clear on what I was going to say. So I did get a couple comments, one of which recently, you know, someone who didn't like what I had to say, but they were respectful. I mean, and I don't mind that at all. If you disagree with something, I don't mind having a conversation in comments. That's fine. And this person, you know, was very direct. Said, you know, they didn't agree, didn't like what I had to say. We had a back and forth, and we parted friends, I think. So that I'll take all day long. I don't mind that at all. So, like I said, I probably could have left it up, but the video that I'm talking about is the what is it? It was the how much of trucking is actually work. And there's just a couple things I could have been clearer about. For one thing, there's a million different kinds of trucking. I was talking about OTR with prime. OTR meaning, you know, basically what you're doing is driving. You're not doing a lot of loading, unloading, you know, that kind of thing. You know, the second half of that was that when I talked about what work is, I really meant physical labor. I wasn't saying that the job doesn't have an enormous amount of responsibility, importance, anything like that. I wasn't trying to diminish anything in the trucking field. I was just pointing out, and I think the reason I did the video was because much of my audience, I've learned, are people just like me who are, you know, really kind of diving into YouTube research and thinking they want to do this, but just scared to do it, and rightfully so. This is a big decision. But some of those people out there are 40, 50, you know, the joints aren't working like they used to, back pain, things like that, and I wondered, just at the root level, can you do the job? You know, so I wanted to make a video to let you know that, you know, almost anybody can do this. It's a learned set of skills that I will say almost, if not anybody, can learn, you know. That was my point with it. That and the fact, you know, the saying, and I probably should have used the saying that, you know, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. That was kind of the point I was trying to make, was that 70% of this job is just driving, and it's fun. It's an absolute blast. There's a little bit of manual labor at the shippers and receivers, and that 15 to 20 minutes can be extremely difficult. For myself, I struggle with the tandems. I got to figure out what I'm doing wrong. I get them in there, but man, it's not an easy process for me yet. You know, I do it. Like I said, it's not I think I'm getting it right. I just haven't gotten real good at it. But so it's just minimal time spent doing physical labor was the point I wanted to make, and the fact that if you love driving, most of this you won't consider quote unquote work. But a few people kind of took issue with the fact that I didn't differentiate the OTR from local drivers who do unload and load their trucks all day long, and that absolutely is work. There's flatbedders that, for that very reason, I chose reefer. I did not want to be climbing up on top of 20 feet of logs, you know, every day. So there are certainly trucking jobs that are 90% work and, you know, 10% not. So I like the sentiment. I'll probably do it over again, but try to be a lot more clear with it. So those of you that did comment on that one, positive or negative, I don't care. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. All right, on to the Bonehead trucker story that I have. Like I said, it involves a trucker that drives a truck that looks exactly like mine. The person that drives it looks exactly like me. It's me. And by Bonehead, I'm not talking about like the other site where I didn't hit anything. It was no disaster or anything, just something that was more embarrassing than anything else. Just a stupid, dumb mistake that didn't have any consequences other than real tired and took up some time. All right, so I was at a Tyson plant. Tyson meats, chickens, that kind of thing. And anyway, it started off great. It was set to be a drop-in hook, and I pulled into the place, and as soon as I got past the registration, the guard shack, the yard dog came up. And those of you who don't know yard dogs, those are the guys in the little, they have special trucks that they can whip in, and they move trailers around with great ease. I wish we could park like they do. They can turn on a dime. But anyway, he pulled up and said, he said, man, I need an empty trailer like right now. If you want to just park it right here in front of the guard shack, I'll take it off your hands. So I'm like, great, man, that's easy, So I unhooked, and he hooked up, and I asked him, I said, I'm about to pick up a trailer. Do you happen to have an idea where it might be? And he said, Lord, no. He said it might be this line of trailers right here that was right next to us. It could be in that lot over there. And he pointed to another big lot with lots of trailers. And he said, honestly, it may even be on the lot across the street. So I'm like, I know what this is going to turn into. And those of you that truck know that it's a pain in the neck when you don't know roughly where your trailer is, and you're just slowly, and this was at night too, going up and down the aisles, looking at the numbers on each trailer, trying to find yours. It can be kind of a time-consuming nightmare. However, still going good. I got about halfway down the line the first line he talked about right next to us, and there it was. So I was like, yeah, man, this is going great. So anyway, I do my maneuver. I back up and I start my hooking process, and I noticed right then, I have a 1, 2, 3, 4 process. One is always go, whether you're hooking up or detaching, you go to the back and either remove your lock or put your lock on. So I went back to put my lock on the trailer, and I noticed it was kind of a passing thought, but I noticed, the two doors have these like a metal hinge thing with holes in the middle where they line up, and you can put your lock through both the doors and lock them tight. And I noticed it was just a little different from the usual prime trailer. Some of y'all might see where I'm going with this, but it wasn't anything wrong. But it was a different apparatus. It was slightly different. I'm like, oh, that's weird. Okay, but I locked it. I went to do my second move, which is put down the landing gear, and I went and I started cranking. And I said, man, this landing gear was so difficult. It just wasn't. It was like, it felt like old equipment, and just you couldn't get it into the gear that you need. It's just a handlebar that there's like 2 gears depending on where you set the crank handle, whatever. But it was just, oh my God, it was so hard to crank it down. But I eventually got it. Lots of sweat. I got it up, no problem. Went on to move number 3, which is your hoses, your 2 air hoses, and your electrical cable. And I went over, and I again, it just wasn't easy. Like with most prime trailers, I was struggling to get the glad hands into the position, just like felt like it might be a really old trailer, with little rust and that kind of thing. And anyway, I got the 2 hoses and the electric cable, and I happened to look to the left through the space in between the tractor and the trailer. I was standing there doing the hoses, and I looked to the left. I don't know why it caught my eye, but I could see clearly the corner piece of the trailer on the far side of me, and the number. That's right. I hooked up to the wrong trailer. I did all that work, and it was the wrong damn trailer. I don't know if I was just tired or what, but I did my maneuver, and somewhat in my defense, the trailers do, you can be on a line of trailers that look all the same, and when you set up to back up, you got to make sure you're on the right one. I was not careful, and so I'm like, oh God, I got to undo all of this, and I did, and had just as much struggle the other way. Maybe not quite as much with the landing gear. Have gravity working with you on the way down. So, but and I also, to make matters worse, in front of all these trailers is the back door to the plant, And of course, this was break time for everybody in there. So there was like 15 or 20 people having a smoke break outside, maybe 30 yards away, enjoying the show. So, so I, head hung low, switched everything out, and pulled over to the next one. And this one, for the most part, worked better. However, the yard dog that parked these trailers, this time on this trailer, I had exactly my width and no more room to work with, and that's not a problem except for cranking the handle. And so I did my lock, and the crank, oh my god, to get that up, it was so hard. For one thing, again, I had the weight of the trailer on it, but it was just, I literally, when I'm sideways, I have both the trailer behind me and the one I'm doing, I'm touching both. It was really that tight. So I ended up kind of ducking underneath and working that crank handle. So yeah, just a embarrassing, dumb mistake. Didn't have any consequences other than I got some really good exercise that night, and I maybe gave a laugh or two to 15 or 20 Tyson workers. So anyway, I thought y'all might enjoy that. I'll tack on, last week was kind of a rough week, I'll be honest. It was good work-wise. I've been kind of on a string of short runs, which is fine. It's actually seems to be a little better on the money, when you're doing almost a load every 24 hours or so, rather than a 5-day, California run, coast to coast or whatever, which I prefer, just enjoyment-wise. I love going west. But I'm doing these little short ones, which are work. I'm not saying that's bad, but let's see. I blew a rear trailer tire on the way into my 01 Williamsburg Anheuser-Busch, which I've been to many times because it's right near my house. Blew a tire on the way in, so I was checking the tire. I didn't feel or hear or anything. You just start getting these alerts on your Qualcomm, and anyway, it says pull over within a half a mile. You got a catastrophic tire problem. So I pulled in and got in the inbound lane, and went out and looked, and yeah, sure enough, it was intact. It wasn't one of those that was blown all to smithereens. It was intact, but it was flat, totally flat, right rear trailer. So I talked with the people there, and I talked with Road Assist, and it was all agreed that I would go ahead and limp it to a parking spot, because this was a drop and hook. Limp it there, and the Road Assist would work on getting somebody, out to work on it. After I had gone, I was okay to finish my drop and hook. I didn't have to stay with the trailer. So that was that. Let's see. There was, oh my God, there was a dock that we had, and I don't remember where it was or when, that it was tight to begin with, and then had like off-road terrain. You could see that it was needed because trucks had churned this. I'm not talking about just a dirt part of the lot. I'm talking about grass and everything else, even some curbs on either end. That you could see many trucks had to use that area to park. And there, for one thing, just that it was a cluster F to begin with, as far as what was going on. With trucks coming and going. It was a one-way thing. People kept getting kind of jammed at a dead end. Oh my God, it was a mess. And anyway, I waited, and I got to watch a prime truck in front of me. I met the guy, and really nice guy. He was into I think his 5th or 6th month solo, and I watched him struggle, and it wasn't his fault. The setup was just terrible. There was not his setup, but the setup of the facility. It was a tight parking lot, and you had to use this bumpy grass-covered ground, with ruts and everything. It's all turned up. You had to use that to back, particularly because there was trailers parked places where you really needed that space to do your maneuver. So I watched him struggle. Literally like 20 minutes, maybe more. And you could just see, I was at a distance, but I could just tell, God, that's got to be so nerve-wracking. He finally got in there, and we had talked before and after. And I talked to him, he's like, man, yeah, that was rough. And anyway, watching him, I thought I kind of had it figured out where I wouldn't need to use that rough terrain, but I couldn't. I had just as much trouble as he did. by the end there, I started getting alerts saying that my clutch was overheating, and I'm like, oh great, I'm gonna be stuck. It's gonna poop out on me, and I'm gonna be stuck halfway into a turn here. But he, the guy before me, and I did end up getting it in there, but that was rough. What else? Oh, I don't want to give too much because I have something planned for. I want to do an episode on GPS woes and misery. But I'll let the cat out of the bag on one of the items that GPS got me not horrible, or it ended up being fine, but I did my first 9% grade, and this wasn't one of the, Donner or Cabbage or Rattlesnake Canyon or anything like that. It wasn't named at all as far as I'm concerned, as far as I know. It was up in the mountains. Again, I don't want to let too much out, but my Rand McNally just apparently loves going through pre-Civil War towns, which is a nightmare for trucks, and windy mountain roads. It loves those little routes. I love them when I'm on vacation, not when I'm trucking. But it took me to a 9% grade, one where it had something I'd never seen before. It had signs flashing saying every truck must stop and read sign, and you had to pull over into this one spot, and you had to sit there, and this huge sign in front of you mapped out the 9% grade. The twists, the turns, it tells where the emergency pull-off, whatever, runaway truck ramps are, and things like that. And it said you need to start low gear and jake brake full blast, So anyway, I did it, and it was fine. The jake brake did its job, but yeah, you're already kind of your nerves are rattled, or going through these little tiny tight towns, little tight turns here and there. It's the kind with the houses that are like right on the road. There's like sidewalk and then house, no front yard. These old, kind of like if you've been to Gettysburg or something like that, but smaller, old town, where there's more railroad tracks than roads crisscrossing through the place. One thing that was kind of cool, at the bottom of the 9% grade, I believe it was maybe a mile after the 9% grade, went through the hometown of Jim Thorpe. And again, I need to brush up on my Jim Thorpe. I remember seeing some specials. I think it was a drunk history show that my family used to watch. We used to enjoy a lot, and I think they did one on Jim Thorpe. My understanding was, he's from a little town, but he was a very avid, I think, long distance runner, maybe decathlon, something like that, Olympian. And I think, as I recall, and I could be wrong, but I seem to recall the story being that he went to the Olympics, and he was, poor guy from this little tiny town, mountain town, and I think the other athletes were kind of looking down their nose at him and teasing him and giving him a lot of trouble, and they stole his cleats, I think, if I'm getting this correct. And anyway, they stole his cleats, and he either ended up borrowing a pair, or there was someone had an old pair of sneakers or something that he had to like tape together or something. Anyway, I should have brushed up on my Jim Thorpe story before I did this video, but I seem to recall something like that. But anyway, an avid Olympian, beautiful town. You actually, go over a pretty epic bridge, and I saw the cross-country team, going across, I guess it was Jim Thorpe High School or something, So that was cool. It had a little park with bronze statues, 2 or 3 bronze statues of him, so kind of neat. It was, I guess, a little bit of a reward after the hell that Mr. Rand McNally put me through. Trying to think if there was anything else. Like I said, it was just a rough week. I'm probably missing something, but it was just one right after the other. I had to get repowered for the first time. My 70 was running pretty low, and I got a load that had two deliveries, and I remember my 5 delivery one didn't go so well. But I told him, my dispatcher at the beginning, I said, you look at my clock too, but I'm looking at it. It looks like I can do it if everything lines up and goes right. But I was concerned about my time. Wasn't sure I had it, even if things went well. And sure enough, there came a night where I was, let's see, I don't remember. I had the full drive to get there, but I had done the math. I would get close, but I would not get there before my 70 ran out. I did the math of when I, if I took my 10 and when I could actually get there. I told them if they could move the appointment about 4 hours, I'd make it. And anyway, for some reason, 4 hours was too much, and they said, nope, you got to repower. So I had to repower in the middle of the night. This was honestly during my break, my 10-hour break. I had to, break up my sleeper berth, which didn't help the time clock either, you know, to move to a rest stop, not a rest stop. I was at a rest stop, had to move to a truck stop to switch trailers with a person. So that was a pain in the ass, and I didn't want to be repowered. So, but anyway, so yeah, kind of a rough week. I made it through. Moving on. This week's been much easier. And we're doing pretty well. So where I'm going, I'm heading to Tennessee tonight, and then I've got a load picking up in Tennessee and heading to Georgia next. So anyway, I'll cut it there. I hope you guys are doing great. Hope you're having a wonderful Sunday, and I hope you're well. Talk to you later.